Welcome to the Zen of International Living webcast series, where we discuss the ways in which international living or an international mindset can impact your well-being and enrich your life. Hello, I'm International Living Overseas Editor Jessica Ramesh. I'm coming to you from my hometown since 2005, Panama City, Panama. And joining me today is Brian Winz from Wisconsin, one of our brave expat dads. Brian is actually living in the beautiful rainforest area of Gamboa. I drove out there recently to visit him, sample some of his amazing bread and pizza. We'll get to that in just a moment. My drive to Gamboa was about a half hour from the northern sector of Panama City, going toward the border of the Panama province, where I'm located, and the Colon province. And the drive is so beautiful because it takes me past the Camino de Cruces National Park and Soberania National Park, and both of those are rainforest parks and very important parts of the Panama Canal watershed. So we're going to be talking about this gorgeous area, Gamboa, and Brian's plans for it. But first, Brian, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
It's awesome to have you, and there's so much that I want to talk to you about today. Let's start, if we could, with a little bit of your background, what you were doing back in Wisconsin before you moved here, how Panama got on your radar. If I'm not mistaken, it was love that first brought you here. Is that right?
Yes, it was. Yes. I basically ended up marrying my high school sweetheart. Oh. And she is half Panamanian. And we took over a family business. Her parents had a bakery in Madison, Wisconsin. And in 2006, we took over the family business, and we ran the bakery together in Madison. Prior to that, I went to baking school in New York City at the French Culinary Institute.
Wow.
And went through their bread baking program, or I should say, ate my way through their bread baking program.
And Brian, you're like 6 feet tall, right? So that's not a problem for you, right?
No, I mean, the croissants is the almond croissants is what really gets me, to be honest.
They sound amazing. I didn't get to try those at your house.
Yeah, thankfully I don't make them just yet. So we ran the bakery for about 12 years, and unfortunately, our relationship we decided to separate. But she, prior to our separation, we had a seasonal business, so we didn't necessarily need to work during the winter months, because our bakery was primarily a farmer's market bakery.
Okay.
And so what we would normally do was we'd come down to Panama for vacation, and we'd stay down here usually about 2 to 3 months during the cold Wisconsin winters. We'd come down here. And after sort of the divorce, she asked me if I would be interested in moving to Panama permanently and starting a bakery there, just because we wanted kind of a change of pace in our life. So last February, or 2 Februaries ago, I decided to move down here. We did, to Gamboa. And kind of at first when I first got here to Gamboa, I was trying to, get a feel for if this neighborhood, first of all, if it had a bakery, and, right, and then also would there be enough customers to support a bakery in Gamboa? Because we are sort of out in the jungle here.
Yeah.
So obviously the pandemic hit, and like everyone else, I started making banana bread and sourdough. And I thought to myself, I'll test the market and just start baking bread for my neighbors in the Gamboa community, just to see what sort of response it would receive. And it went really well. What's unique about Gamboa is it's filled with people from all around the world. So it's really a neighborhood that's mixed with, you have scientists, from the Smithsonian Institute. The Smithsonian Institute has a field study program here. So they have a bunch of, a regular flow of students that come into Gamboa and do their field work here. Then you also have sort of the Panamanian, sort of an older crowd, retirees. So it's a real fun mix of a diverse crowd of people here.
Right. And you, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't grow up speaking Spanish. You're not a Spanish speaker.
No, I'm mixed with my mom's from Trinidad and Tobago, and my dad is essentially from Wisconsin. So I actually grew up in Jamaica, half the time in Jamaica, and then half the time in Wisconsin. So
really, wow.
Yeah.
All English, right?
I'm sorry.
All English. So now you're living in this Spanish environment, but you seem to get along just fine, despite the change in language.
Yeah, I mean, again, this neighborhood has an international crowd,
right?
So you could get by. I mean, they'll definitely make it known that you don't speak Spanish. Often they'll be like, "You don't speak Spanish? You need to learn. You need to learn," which I am learning.
Of course.
But yeah, that's sort of, the nice thing about this neighborhood is you don't have to speak Spanish in order to get by and socialize with people here. So, but I am learning.
Absolutely, absolutely. But it's good to know that this is a community that would perhaps provide for a soft landing for somebody who was interested in living maybe outside Panama City, somewhere very green and beautiful, but still, within close access to all of the hospitals and restaurants and whatnot in Panama City. And, a place where if you don't speak Spanish, you can get by while you're learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And this is a big birder community as well. So there's a lot of tourists, people that love birds will come here because it's, Panama is the intersection between South America and North America. So the migration of birds through Panama is pretty spectacular. And Gamboa in particular is world renowned for the different types of birds that you see here. So again, there's all kinds of different people here. Most of them speak English. Obviously, just about all of them, except myself, speak Spanish. So I don't find it a problem at all.
Awesome. And I just want to say, for those of you listening who may not be familiar with Panama as a birding destination, over 900 species. Panama is one of the most biodiverse places on the planet, one of the renowned places for bird watching on the planet. And Gamboa is the site of one of our most famous bird watching trails. You have Pipeline Road there, you have the Canopy Tower, you have Gamboa Rainforest Resort. So if you're interested in bird watching, a very good place to do that, just as Brian says. And Brian, why Gamboa? I mean, did your ex-wife already have ties in the Gamboa area? How did you land on Gamboa? There's so many beautiful areas outside Panama City if you do want proximity to the city. And you're the first person that I've interviewed that chose Gamboa.
Yeah. Gamboa is a very unique. I mean, I've been coming down to Panama since 2002, and I've pretty much scoured the entire country. I haven't been to the most eastern part of Panama, which is like the Darien, but I've been pretty much everywhere else. And Gamboa is very unique. It is close to the city, so it's about 35 to 40-minute drive to Panama City. Right. But it's very secluded, which is really, it's nice. It's super peaceful. Again, the birds are plentiful and very exotic. I can go, walk out my front door and get lost in the jungle for half the afternoon with my kids. So it's got, and then also you have the lake nearby, the watershed nearby. So you can go kayaking there. My kids went fishing yesterday. We rented a boat for the day. We went fishing. So it's a very diverse place. You're not stuck. You'll never be bored out here in Gamboa. There's a lot of different activities to participate in.
Right, a ton to do there. What kind of fish did you catch?
I'm sorry?
What kind of fish did you catch?
I believe it was bass. My kids went out with their mother yesterday, and believe they went last Monday and they caught probably 15 to 20 fish. And they brought me some. And I was like, all right, what am I going to do with these two
An
fishes
entire
here?
fish.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not really up on like how to scale and gut the fish. And so thankfully one of my neighbors is he knows how to do all that, so I gave it to him. But yeah, I believe it was bass that they caught.
Cool. So again, choosing Gamboa as a place to live. Tell me a little bit more about that, why you landed on Gamboa as opposed to Panama Pacifico or one of the other
Yeah.
suburban areas.
Well, my ex-wife, she's half Panamanian, so she knew the country a lot better than I did. And Gamboa is, again, just super serene and peaceful. I mean, we're in the middle of protected jungle, so you really can't go wrong as far as if you want sort of a stress-free environment.
Right.
And it's, again, very close to the city. It's just beautiful. It's just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, I see toucans regularly. Hummingbirds are constantly flying around. You got caimans and alligators, which are out in the water that you can see. At night, you can take a nighttime jungle walk, which is another sort of, all the nighttime critters come out. So there's just a lot of fun things to do. We have our kids here too, and there's a school in town that they were going to. Unfortunately, that COVID kind of closed that down. But once it reopens, they'll go back to that. So there's like a small little school here. It's just a really beautiful environment for kids and sort of peaceful, tranquil lifestyle, which is what we were really attracted to.
Right. And you have two kids?
I have three.
You
I
have
have a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old. So it's and what's nice about Gamboa is literally, I just say that guys outside, if they start getting if they start getting crazy, I'll be just saying, all right, guys, go outside, and they'll be, climbing trees and looking at crazy insects. I mean, there's just so many things. And my youngest is so into, he's like an insect guy right now, and he's always constantly showing lizards. I mean, all the different types of lizards that they have out in the community is pretty amazing. And so it's fun for the kids. They'll never get bored out here.
Yeah, it's definitely a great area for kids. And you mentioned the school. Tell me a little bit about the school. Is it right in Gamboa? Is it a bilingual school?
Yep. It's a bilingual school. It's a very small school. So Gamboa is a small community out here. So, there's not a ton of kids. It's it's a type of school where there'll be multiple ages in a single class, which I like.
Yeah.
The teachers here,
prairie.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I would say. It's kind of like a little house in the prairie. It's one, couple rooms, couple large rooms. They meet under a tree in the morning and talk about they talk about their day, and obviously they go for field trips, and there's a little garden behind the school that they tend to, the garden club. What else is there? They're constantly doing field trips. They went to visit a bunch of caves 2 weeks ago. They went camping. So it's it's like sort of a jungle lifestyle for them, and they, again, it's a beautiful place to learn, because there's just so much diversity just right around everywhere.
What a cool upbringing. And the kids, the transition has been okay for them. I think at that age, you really do adapt. I came here for the first time when I was 14.
Okay.
And was able to adapt pretty quickly, even at that age.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's a handful of kids from all around the world here, and they're at that age where within 5 minutes they have best friends. So and they kind of like, they're like a gang. They just kind of roam around Gamboa, climbing trees and playing with sticks and getting into trouble. They have not had a problem adjusting, just because there's other kids here that are sort of in the same boat.
Right.
Yeah.
Very
Mhm.
important. So they're not clamoring for you to move them back to Wisconsin.
No, no. Although we are going back for their summer vacations coming up. We'll be going back for about 6 weeks so they can see their grandparents and we can get a dose of Wisconsin life. But yeah, no, again, there's just so many activities for them to do here that they're never really bored. I mean, obviously there's always screen time that can dominate their life. So sometimes I'll have to like limit that, but all I have to do is basically tell them to go outside and then they're gone for, and Gamboa is so safe that
Right.
I feel totally comfortable just letting them sort of go outside and
Yeah.
they'll come home when it gets dark. It's that sort of lifestyle, and I don't
Yeah.
have to worry about any danger really, other than maybe the occasional caiman, but they usually stick to the swampy areas.
They do.
Although we did have a caiman come into the neighborhood last year, and we had to call that sort of the wildlife protective services to come and just gently remove the caiman.
Yeah, and they're very good at that. They'll put it back where it belongs,
Yeah,
not unlike living in Florida, right? I mean, this sort of thing can happen in
right.
the States too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that just adds to the excitement, right?
It does. It does add to the excitement. And you mentioned that you had looked in Gamboa to figure out if there was a bakery and whether this was going to be a good place to start, to start doing that. So how about we talk a little bit about that, about your plans, your amazing bread and
Sure.
what
Yeah.
you got right around the corner.
Yeah. So Gamboa is a community that was founded as a place for the dredging division to sort of do their operations. So the Panama Canal constantly needs to be dredged. And so they have like a pier here in town where they have their equipment, and then it's also sort of a staging ground for the employees to go out onto the canal. And it used to have, I feel like Gamboa is kind of like a Detroit in a way.
Mhm.
If you're familiar with Detroit, it was like at one point it was just sort of this sort of bustling, booming city, and then very quickly during the civil rights movement, it just sort of it was abandoned almost. And now Detroit is experiencing a resurgence of young people, artists coming in and sort of revitalizing the city. I feel like Gamboa is very similar to that. It is an industrial town. When it was built, it had sort of its heyday. It had a train station. It had like a theater. It had a public pool. It had a very strong community here. And then I think when the United States slowly left Panama, that this town sort of became sort of abandoned in a way.
Mhm.
And now Smithsonian came in, and a lot of people are starting to wake up to the fact like, wow, there's this really, really beautiful community out in the jungle, and there's still some vacant buildings here that are available. So it's I think I realized that what Gambo doesn't really have right now is sort of a community gathering point. We have a local tienda, or like a little corner store, and that right now is sort of like the gathering point where you're going to bump into your neighbors. But as far as like sharing a cup of coffee and talking about just sort of your life, there isn't really that gathering point yet. So my
Right.
plan is to do that. And bakeries are amazing, right? They're amazing places. You first of all, you're drawn in by the smell, and then you see the treats, and then it's a type of place where you can sit down and have a cup of coffee and spend 2 hours talking. So my passion is, I like to make people feel good. That's sort of what I like the ultimate goal of why I do what I do. And I think I see here in Gamboa a need for sort of that touch point, that community gathering point. And we found a building that we are sort of looking at as far as a place that we would move into in downtown Gamboa here. So it's pretty exciting. Got to work out some of the details, but we are looking forward to potentially opening up a bakery here, probably about 8 months or so, 6 to 8 months, if things go accordingly.
And you've been testing, right? You've been selling your baguettes and selling your
Yeah.
pizza. Tell the
Yes.
audience a little bit about how you've been doing that and getting the word out and getting people to
Yeah.
sample your products.
Sure. So, right before the COVID hit, or during COVID, I was, we all were experiencing like just sort of this state of like what's going on in the world, kind of scary. We're not going to work anymore. Like the world is on pause. And during that period of time, I needed to do something to occupy sort of my mind and do something that I love to do. And I thought to myself, well, let's just start baking for my immediate neighbors, and let's see if they enjoy like handmade bread.
Yeah.
And that went really well. So I started baking bread out of like this little kitchen oven, just like your average oven that you'd find in a house. And I started getting more and more orders. So I thought to myself, all right, I'm going to start charging a little bit of money for it, and more just to break even. And I started doing probably 15 breads every other day out of my at-home oven. It was getting to the point where I was waking up at like 4 in the morning, and I was in my kitchen bake because I could only bake like one bread at a time.
One at
Right?
a time,
Yes.
Brian.
Yes. So I'm just like, literally, I was like, wow, this is getting crazy. I'm waking up at 4 in the morning and I'm baking till 2 p.m. and then
Wow.
delivering bread. Yeah. Because I could only do one at a time, and I was doing like 15 loaves, right? So thankfully it took about, it takes about half an hour to bake one loaf of bread. So I would like schedule out my time. And then what was really funny was like I went back to Madison last September, and I told all my neighbors, hey, I'm going to be leaving. I won't be making any more bread. And they all came to me and were like, can we order like 5 each? Like, so the last day I left, I literally woke up at midnight, and I was baking from midnight until 5 p.m. straight to get all the breads out of the oven. And then at 5 p.m., I quickly packed up my bags and then fell asleep. And then at like 4 in the morning, I left to come back to
Panama.
yeah, to go to Wisconsin. And I was just like, this is crazy. So then when I got back to Wisconsin, I thought to myself, well, things are going well. People are liking the bread. And I thought to myself, I wonder what would happen if I got like a sort of an industrial size oven. Nothing big, like sort of a smaller industrial size oven that I could find. Now, those are pretty expensive. They can run between $25,000.
Wow.
So I just out of the blue, I called what my repairman that I used to work with in Wisconsin, and I asked him, his name is Bob. I said, Bob, do you know of any place that's getting rid of like a cheap oven? And he said, funny enough, there's like a brand new oven that this lady bought. She used it for 1 year. It's a small deck oven. And I said, Bob, I want it. And it was for $4,000. And I said, all right, well, that's not bad as far as price goes. I can do that. So I bought this oven in Wisconsin and shipped it down to Panama. And then I went, I also needed a mixing bowl, and I found a reasonably priced one on eBay, had that shipped to Panama. And then the last like big piece of equipment was refrigeration, which I was able to purchase here in Panama at a pretty good price. So, it wasn't a serious investment. And then I live on top of a garage. It's a 9-foot by 18-foot garage, just an empty space. And I took some measurements and realized that it would all the equipment would fit down in there, like really tight.
Yeah.
So I shipped everything in, and I built out like a little, I would call it a micro bakery, and just all of the sort of essentially pieces of equipment. And I came back down here in October, and I fired up the oven, and I started baking breads for my neighbors again. They were desperate. And then during that period of time, I thought, well, people love pizza, and I knew how to do pizzas as well. So right now, we're doing every Friday night, we do pizza night for the Gamboa community. Word has been spreading. So we also now have people from Panama City that are driving out to have pizza. And things are going really well. I just last week started my bread subscriptions. So now I'm delivering bread to my customers, not only in Gamboa, there's other communities nearby. So my schedule right now is I'm baking 3 days a week, and delivering bread to different households in this community and outside this community. And business is going pretty well, and it's hard work, but it's also a labor of love. So I really enjoy what I do. Especially, I mean, I wake up at like 4 a.m. and I open up my door, and it's super tranquil. The birds are chirping. It's really it's magical. I would say it's a very magical experience to be baking in the jungle.
Amazing. Such an amazing area and such amazing bread and pizza, I have to tell you.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing for you that Panama doesn't have that, huge presence of European bakers. There's so much room for bakers
Right.
here.
Absolutely. And one thing that I'm going to start doing once we move into our new place is offer vacations.
Yeah.
So so basically the idea would be people from wherever, United States, Canada, Europe, would come down to Panama, would spend 3 or 4 days here in Gamboa. I would take them through a baking course here in Gamboa, and then after they're done, they could go and visit a coffee farm, or go sailing in the San Blas Islands, or go visit Casco Viejo. So kind of a mix of education and travel as well. So it's it's the experience that people are gravitating towards these days. It's getting some, not just sort of the quintessential mass huge hotel. They want a little bit more. They want to learn something as well when they're traveling. So I definitely would love to offer that to people.
Yeah, giving them a different experience, Gamboa being such a different experience, and that's definitely the way forward with travel. We're seeing that trend definitely for Panama. I also wanted to, as you know, Brian, I wanted to talk about living here as a person of color. I am Indian, and I myself have found it a very welcoming environment. Panama City, obviously being so diverse, the provinces of Colón and Bocas del Toro, so diverse, which are different from, people might think that the country is equally diverse throughout, but you go somewhere like Pedesi and it's not as diverse. You find a lot more of just the regular Spanish descendant Panamanians and not as much diversity, but that's the beauty of Panama. Every region is different. So if we talked about your mom being from Trinidad and Tobago, and you're spending time in Jamaica. So if we could talk a little bit about your experience here. Have you traveled much around Panama? Are interactions very different from the States, or is it pretty much business as usual? And then, with such an international community here in Panama City, Lebanese, Korean, Venezuelan, French, we have so many groups represented in France, Spain, and we know the city's residents are into international cuisine. We've seen all the different types of restaurants pop up. Quality has been amazing. So does the diversity factor into your decision to stay here, to start this particular business, in the level of comfort raising your kids here?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the benefits of Panama is that it is so diverse. Again, what you touched on, like there's, they have the Afro population from the Caribbean that came here during the building of the canal. So you have a high percentage of sort of descendants from Jamaica that live sort of in the northern portions of Panama. You travel throughout the country and you're going to see the sort of the indigenous communities. Here in Gamboa, we have the Wuhan community, which is sort of the indigenous community here. And because it's so diverse, there's really no thought of I've never felt like I'm having a difficult time because of the way I look or the color of my skin or anything like that. Because I think people already, if you're gonna live in Panama, you're gonna get used to seeing every shade under the sky. So, and then once you start talking with people, and everyone's really got a story to share, especially in Gamboa. So there's really, the mindset here is like, it's just more of the mindset of like, wow, this is really cool that I get to live in a community where like there's a guy around the corner, he's from Germany, his wife is from Cuba. We have Colombians here, people from Canada. So it's just that type of person that is going to travel and live in this community is already going to be one that really is open to sort of diversity and it welcomes it. So I love it because of that. It's not even really a talking point down here. Like it's not even on the radar as far as,
Right.
I've never met another Panamanian of color, and they've never said, it's tough here because of my skin color or my background. It's not really an issue at all, which is refreshing and nice to not even really, have to think about that as far as, am I going to be successful because of the way I look, or are people going to perceive me a certain way or categorize me? I mean, maybe I'm just blind to it, being a person, maybe being a person that's mixed. I think sometimes we might not see it. I don't know. I've never, even in Wisconsin, I've never encountered issues. I ran a pretty successful bakery in Madison,
Yeah.
and which is predominantly a white community, and I just treat people the way I want to be treated, and look for the best in everyone, and I hope to get that as a return. So
Yeah, I find that Panamanians really respond to a good energy too.
yeah.
It's, one could say this of any place, but I find particularly for me, my experience in Panama, that this is a place where you really get back what you put out.
Yes, correct. Yes. And what I found interesting about Panama is like, if they're Panamanians can be black, Panamanians can be white, Panamanians can be brown, Panamanians can be Asian, it's just like, that's the thing about Panama, is like, it's so diverse. So it's hard to like, again, categorize a Panamanian, because they're everything. And because that you have that climate here, the whole like sort of racial issues, I think, gets minimized quite a bit, just because, oh, there's a toucan.
Oh, I wish we could see it.
Just jumping on a tree limb here. Yeah, so it's a refreshing place to sort of not, have that sort of in again, I could just be, I'm speaking from my experiences, I definitely could be out there. I'm sure it's out there in some areas, but I haven't experienced it yet.
That's really great to get your perspective. And have you had a chance to travel much throughout Panama, Brian?
Yes, yeah. I've been to Boquete, I've been to Pedesi, Banao, I've been all the way up to the Costa Rican border. I've been to Boquete, Volcan Baru. I've been to Coronado, almost to Darien. I've been to the Pearl Islands, which is awesome. Those are a chain of islands off the southern coast of Panama. I've had the mind-blowing experience of sailing through the San Blas Islands, which is absolutely breathtaking and so remote and beautiful. It's, the type of place where, you'll see islands that are the size of your dinner table with like one palm tree sticking out of it, and you can swim up to it, and there's starfish. It's just like an insanely magical place. So
Pristine Caribbean.
yeah, I mean,
I call
I
those
guess,
cupcake islands.
I'm sorry.
I call those cupcake islands.
Yeah. We should probably keep it a secret, right? Let's not get their word out.
Forget we said anything, folks.
It's horrible.
But you really have seen a lot of the country, Brian, all the way from the western border with Costa Rica, getting close to the Darien, of course, our eastern border, getting closer to Colombia. So, wow, you've done a lot of exploring. That's great to hear.
Yeah. I mean, coming down here in 2004 or two, I can't remember. We just whenever we came down, we would just pick another portion of the country to explore, and we'd rent a car and we'd just head out, because we're pretty adventurous and we want to see what's going on out there.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. That's wonderful. Well, I think that's pretty much our time today. And Brian, I want to thank you so much for your time today. You are amazing. I'm so glad you chose to share your story with me and with all of us. And just want to say it's been such a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good, and I think anyone that comes to Gamboa is gonna notice this magical quality about it. I'm not quite sure exactly if it's in the earth or in the nature, but it's such a beautiful place to check out if you're in Panama. For sure, you should swing by and hopefully grab some bread at a new bakery.
I'm looking forward to that opening up because your pizza and your bread, hands down, the best I've had in Panama City.
Awesome.
And not
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks to Brian and to our audience. Thank you for joining us. What we do for you. So until next time, hasta la próxima.
Bye.